What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video today, and in this video we are doing the 96th installment of Retro Reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing my Gemini Jets 1-400 scale Kalitta Charters II Boeing 727-200 freighter. This aircraft in real life has quite the history to it, operating for a number of different carriers with different registrations all throughout, so only fitting that Gemini chose this particular subject back when they released this in the very famous March 2021 releases that included the Delta Connection CRJ 900 and really started to sway collectors' opinions back in Gemini Jets' favor, which is kind of where they've really been at ever since. I mean, you know, NG still has the best hard product out there, but I mean, the way that they've utilized it throughout the last couple years has been the greatest. But nevertheless, both brands are very competitive and both have got their pros and cons, so it's really just all down to collector preference on, you know, which one's better. So, at any rate, we continue. I got this in May of 2021 from a store that no longer really exists anymore. I mean, there's been a handful of stores that have popped up in the 2020s, and a handful of them, they've kind of vanished for whatever reason. I don't know exactly what happened, but this one was from one of the stores that I previously ordered from on a handful of occasions, but then they just stopped. Like, they weren't shipping out anything. They weren't really, you know, the store just wasn't really active anymore. So they've kind of, they've just kind of faded into obscurity and just now a footnote in the very long history of this community. So at any rate, we have the standard Gemini Jets box for the time with all the usual details that you could ask for. Kalitta Charters II, image of the plane, all that fun stuff there. There's the plastic cradle, and then also the aircraft information. You can pause to read that. And then on the back, labeled a 2021 release, which is correct, and the Boeing license disclaimer. Nothing about Kalitta Charters or anything, though I'm not sure how that exactly works. They may have not gotten licensing from it, but you know, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I don't really care about licensing, and most collectors feel the same way. They just want the best product. That's all they really ask for. And, you know, sometimes I may buy the licensed product, but it's not usually because that's what I want. It's just because it's either what I prefer for other reasons or it's the only option out there. So there it is, Kalitta Charters II 727-200. At the time this was released, this was an active airframe, but as of late it has since been put into storage and will likely be meeting the scrappers soon, which is unfortunate because this aircraft has quite the history to tell us, and we'll take a look at that towards the end of the video. Starting off the front, we have the nose cone, the cockpit windows along with an anti-glare shield. The cockpit printing is actually pretty good on this. The 727, I wouldn't say it's like one of their best molds, but I wouldn't say it's one of their worst either. It's really good still for at least the time. I think this mold is basically the same since it was from the 2000s, just updated with new landing gear and antennas and that fun stuff. So there's a little front door right there, and then the cargo loading bay right there. One antenna up top, and there's actually two antennas on the bottom. Gemini has, at least for cost-saving reasons, for cost-saving reasons and just all that, because these antennas are a bit difficult to attach, they don't do the bottom ones, which does exclude some detail, which some collectors prefer, but that's just how Gemini rolls. One window there on that overwing exit, and then the Kalitta Charters II titles above the red and gray cheat line. And then that expands out into a larger area towards the rear. You got the very lovely engines on this bird, and specifically they are the Pratt & Whitney JT8D-17Rs, and they have been fitted with hush kits so that the aircraft isn't as noisy, but you can't really fully silence the 727. Registration November 726 Charlie Kilo on the tail engine, and then there's the gray tail with the red outline, and you also have the little APU hush kit piece, whatever, that has been attached on there. So yeah, this is very much the same mold that Gemini's had for 20 years with this type, just updated with new gear and antennas. Right side of the aircraft, you just have the right side door there, and then a couple smaller luggage doors underneath, but otherwise everything remains the same here. And then as we take a look at the underneath of the aircraft, a lot of details printed under here. You've got these 4 panels, air inlet, stand hole, landing gear doors, Gemini Jets logo, which always gets smaller every month. And then the top of the aircraft, you do have some gray markings right here. They don't have any, well, actually, or no, I think that's just the dust mark there, but just that gray area, which I'd assume where the overwing exit markings would have been back when this was a passenger aircraft, but since it's now a freighter, that's not really necessary anymore. Overall, a very nice model from Gemini Jets, and just another one of these aircraft that I love to have, and I was definitely tempted by it when this got released, but obviously I was more after the Delta CR9, which I got mine from Waffle, and Waffle, for whatever reason, he got like a ton of stock from that. I don't know how he obtained so many. He just had a large quantity of them, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, I have better odds of getting it there because many collectors had their orders canceled, and I even knew several that placed orders for that, and unfortunately their order got canceled. And you know, they even had placed just 1 or 2, and then you had some people trying to load up on their fleet as well. I think somebody got like multiple, or at least they tried to. I don't know. It's been such a long time, so I don't really remember most of the details with that. But yeah, that March 2021 release, excuse me, was certainly something. But at any rate, let's go ahead and take a look at the real-life aircraft's history. She first flew in 1980, and she was actually looking to go to Hughes Air West. Registered November 741 Romeo Whiskey. She was only with them for about 2 weeks, so I don't know if Hughes Air West ever actually operated this aircraft, or if it was just something where it's listed and, you know, it was intended for Hughes Air West, but then they just never operated it. So whatever the case is, it's listed there. And then 2 weeks later, she went to well overseas. She went to the Dubai Air Wing, re-registered to Alpha 6-Hotel Romeo Romeo, and she did spend 5 years with them before heading to Emirates, taking her in December of 85, re-registered to Alpha 6-Echo Mike Alpha. Then she went to Qatar Airways in May of 1996, re-registered again to Alpha 7-ABC. Then she came back to the US to operate for Pacific Air Corp in June of 2001, re-registered again to November 750 Delta Hotel. She then underwent the freighter conversion in January of 2002, and then went to A-Star Air Cargo a couple of months later, which kept that registration. Then she went to Kalitta Charters II in October of 2010, re-registered to November 726 Charlie Kilo. Her latest update was that she was retired by Kalitta Charters in 2024, and based on other sources that I could find, she now has a new registration prefix possibly for 7 Quebec, which is for Malawi in southeastern Africa. So I'm not sure if there's an operator out there that would be willing to take her or what's going to happen there. So I'll have to follow that and see if there's any developments with that, because that is quite interesting to see if this 45-year-old airframe will continue to fly for another few years at least. And that'll do it for this episode of Retro Reviews. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.